All right, so good morning, everyone. There's a few more people who are joining us. Good morning, Precious. I see you. My
Good
name is
morning.
Halona Black. Good morning. My name is Halona Black. This is the Wednesday AM Mindful Storyteller Circle, and we are a journaling and meditation community. And we use journaling and meditation to help us move our lives forward in a way that helps us um, live our lives, live a life worth writing is what I like to say. Um, Today we're talking about late bloomers. I want to talk about late bloomers. That came up a couple of times in the past week um, for me in conversations with people. But first, I wanted to start off with just a short meditation to be able to help us to ground us into the session, if that's
Yes,
okay with everybody.
that's fine.
So what we normally do is we sit out in a way that we're comfortable. And I like to call it an invitation for people to be able to join us. And instead of thinking about it, meditation as I don't know, as something as a mechanical thing that you have to do, I like to invite people to think about it as a moment of extreme self-care, to be able to pay attention to who you are and what it is that you're doing. And so if you want to, you can, if it makes you feel more comfortable, I sometimes like to stop the video on mine just to be able to help us to be able to focus. I also take off my glasses so that I can take my focus off the eyes, my actual eyeballs, and I can turn my attention more inwards. And what you can do is you can just start to lower your gaze or just close your eyes altogether if you feel comfortable doing that. And you just start to feel comfortable with what it is that's going on in your immediate space. What noises can you hear? For myself, I can hear the refrigerator humming in the background, or maybe there's birds in the background. I can feel the air around me on my skin. Just sort of check in with your five senses, just to start to think of what it is that's going on around you, to get a sense of place and become grounded where you are. Check in with yourself on how it is that you would like to be able to sit today. Sit in a way that feels most comfortable for you in this moment. If you are sitting, if you're sitting in a regular chair, it's often nice to just be able to have your feet flat against the floor. You can also fold your legs up in a folded leg position. Place your hands on either side of your knees. And just sort of sit up as straight as you possibly can to a point where it still feels comfortable, but not to a point where you're in pain or any sort of discomfort. And right now, we're just going to check in with our breathing for a moment. Just check in with your breathing. We're breathing normally. And if you'd like, you can take your right hand and place it over your heart just to see what your heart rate feels like today. We're still breathing normally. Just check in with your heart rate. Does it have a steady pace? Does it have some kind of irregularity about it? Is it moving fast, or does it have an even pace that sort of moves along with your breath? And as we sit here with our hand over our heart, we're just going to take a moment to breathe in. And if you can imagine the breath drawing in through the back of your heart. And when you breathe out, you can imagine the breath flowing out through the front of your heart. So we're just going to breathe in as deeply as we can, and then we'll let it out through the front of the heart. So 1, 2, 3, we breathe in through the back of the heart and out through the front of the heart. Just follow the breath in your mind. See if you can create a picture for yourself. For a second time, we breathe in through the back of the heart, out through the front of the heart. One final time, we will breathe in through the back of the heart, out through the front of the heart. And as we finish that final deep breath, just check in with yourself again to see what your heart rate feels like. Has it changed? Is there any difference at all? Has it gotten faster or slower? We're not judging what your heart is doing. We're just simply checking in with ourselves as a moment of self-care. And when you're ready, you can open up your eyes and put your video back on if you would like. All right. So late bloomers, Late bloomers. I've heard that term a couple of times this week, and it actually dawned on me that I don't think I like that term at all. I don't think I like the term late bloomers. And so one of the things that when words come up in my vocabulary, or if I keep hearing a word, it's usually for a reason. And so I start asking myself why. Um, and so, you're probably all familiar with late bloomers, but just so that we're all on the same page, late bloomers, I define late bloomers as people who are folks who sort of seemingly grow into themselves later in life. Like they find a talent or something later in life, or later than maybe you know, most people would find it. And usually when they call you a late bloomer, then there's probably a period before that, of some sort of a period before when you were not, it's assumed that you were not blooming. And I think that's the part that I have the most issue with. And I don't think it's meant to be a harmful term. I don't think people are using it to be in a harmful term. It's just sort of using it as a way to be able to be encouraging to the person that's experiencing some sort of a blooming of sorts in their lives. But I really think that we need to be able to find a new language for it. One, because of what I already said about assuming that if you're blooming later on in life, that means that you probably weren't blooming before. But it also just sort of puts us all on the same timeline of life, which isn't really fair. I've learned that all of us are just sort of moving along at our own pace, creating our own stories. And I think we need to embrace more of that instead of comparing ourselves to one another. Of course, the term late bloomers, it sort of comes from using the terminology from flowers, because, flowers bloom. But when you think about it, flowers sort of bloom at their own pace as well. But it also doesn't take into account that flowers also have several seasons of blooming. It's not like they just bloom one time and then they, wilt away and die. Flowers have several seasons of blooming. And so there's seasons of blooming when they're, beautiful and we can all appreciate it. But there's also seasons of wilting and laying dormant. And I think that's also valuable as well. And it's oftentimes the wilting and the laying dormant. There's other things that are going on in our lives that may be adding to our next season of blooming that nobody really bothers to give any thought or power to. I think that's a really important part of our lives. If we sit down and if all of us were to sit and to just bloom 24/7, that often leads to things like illness. You have anxiety disorders. And it also kind of leads to burnout, I believe. Also, if you think about it, time is also such as a social construct. And so if we all sat down and if we all really sat down and had the belief that we had to have our whole lives figured out by a certain age, what would that age really be? Are you supposed to, why is it that we believe that we're supposed to have our lives look a certain way by a certain age? I remember when I was about 40-ish and I was living with my dad for a while. This was right before I was leaving the States, what turned out to be kind of permanently, I guess, 6 years later. And I had asked him about whether or not he was disappointed in me because I had not achieved, all of the things that everybody else had achieved. And at that point, I had been divorced. I had another relationship where I thought I was going to get married. That didn't really work out. And and I thought that I was going to buy a house. There was, times where I wanted to buy a house. The house never came through. Then I wanted to buy the condo. The condo, never went through. Never really had the family that I said that I was going to have. And I was just feeling, like I was feeling low about what it is that I was doing. And my dad turned to me and said, well, he said, well, think about some of the friends that you have that have those things that you said that you wanted to have. Do you want their life and everything that went with it? So in other words, he was reminding me that, while the stuff that they have, the house and the children and the husband that they have looks nice on the outside, but you don't know, you don't necessarily want to take on the struggles of everything they have to take on, that goes on in the rest of their lives. And so that gave me a moment of pause to be able to think about what it is that I was doing. And I appreciate him actually saying that to me, because it did, I just needed something to be able to feel better, because at that moment I was just feeling really low about what it is that I was doing. So yeah, time is a social construct. And it was really at that point where I just decided that I wanted to take more participation in my own life. I think that I wanted to be able to participate in something, but that what I was participating was not really my own life. It was a life that I thought that I was supposed to have. And so I started to become more curious about the life that I was supposed to have. What was that supposed to look like? And I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to go away somewhere to go do stuff, to do what I don't really know. Um, but that was just my feeling. That was my wilting and laying dormant season of just not really being sure of not being sure, and just kind of just going with the flow to be able to figure out, well, what's the next step of my life supposed to be? And it really turned out to be one of the probably the best seasons of my life. And I hope that I have more seasons like this. I invite it now, like that, there've been a couple of other times in the last 6 or 7 years where I've sort of felt like, well, what am I supposed to do next? And instead of feeling like I'm supposed to, be deathly afraid of it, I just sort of welcomed it. I sat with it. Through the practice of meditation, I kind of learned how to just sit with it and welcome it, have a conversation with it, really, with that feeling of not knowing what to do, and just let it pop up. You'll just sort of move slowly with the things that come to you, and then it'll sort of take a life of its own after a while. But when you ignore it, it doesn't come up for you, and you wind up taking on somebody else's timeline. So, yeah, so those are my thoughts about late bloomers. I don't know if anyone else wanted to share, if they had any thoughts about being a late bloomer. Do you feel like you're a late bloomer? Do you like the term late bloomer?
What is it called when you bloom early?
When you bloom early.
Is
I'm
there a
a
term for that?
early bloomer. They're both, those are both terms that are used. The early bloomer and a late bloomer. Because some people know what they want to do from a very early age. You'll hear people say, I wanted to be a doctor when I
Mhm.
was 6 years old. And they follow that path all the way through. And for late bloomer, I agree with you, Halona, because if you're blooming all along, then you're right on time. You can only be a late bloomer if you're not going to grow and whether you actively do something or not, you're gonna grow.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be on this planet and not grow.
Right.
You might not recognize the lessons or adhere to them, but you're growing all the time.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thanks, Halona. Good
Mm-hmm.
morning, everybody. While you were talking, I think you summed up so much of what I know I have been through in my life, and I didn't like that term either. I feel better about it right now, though, but I didn't like that term uh, at all before I came in. When I think about blooming late, I was definitely a late bloomer. I think I was a late bloomer, but I don't like to use that term anymore because I am what I am because this is what I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about blooming, I think about, and I love plants and flowers and so forth. And the flower is the last thing you see. It's not the first thing you see, it's the last thing you see. It's the culmination of a whole lot of stuff that went into it. And that's why it comes and you appreciate it, then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't have was the roots.
Mm.
I had no roots. I made horrible choices as a younger person, which put my life on a specific trajectory. And thinking that everything would work out okay, because like you said, I wasn't a conscious participator in my life. Consciousness was missing, had no roots, had no depth. And so I constantly failed to bloom. And so I had a lot of resentment at some point years later, had a lot of resentment. And that also inhibited my blooming
Mm-hmm.
because resentments are like weeds. If you don't address them, if you don't pull them out, if you don't destroy them, if you don't know that they're there, if you don't see them, they'll strangle whatever root, whatever bloom, whatever thing is there. So I had a lot of room, a lot of weeds, tiny little buds of blooms and no roots. So I'm grateful that over many years, the roots have grown deeper, I hope, and with love and nurturing from other people, because I wasn't able to do it for myself. But yeah, I don't mind that term right now today anymore. I am in a much better place than I was before. But I know if you guys don't mind, can I just read something? I have been in recovery for like 27 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so every morning I do some readings. And so this morning it was about, I opened it looking for today's date and it fell open to timing, just
Mm-hmm.
timing. And so it says, timing can be frustrating. This is from The Language of Letting Go. The author is Melody Beattie. The timing can be frustrating. We can wait and wait for something to happen, and it seems to be forever until it comes to pass. Or suddenly an event or circumstance is thrust upon us, catching us by surprise. Believing that things happen too slowly or too quickly is an illusion. Timing is perfect. And I have come to believe that timing is perfect, that there really is no time, that everybody lives in their own space. So yeah, thank you for this topic. It really hit a nerve. Thank you for bringing this up this morning, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I love that the quote, and it is funny how that's how I think that's how you know that you are in the right space when stuff comes up and it is relevant to other things that are going on in your life, and you find quotes from people or You'll find other people who are thinking the same or similar thoughts. Yeah, so that quote on timing is perfect. There really is no time. There's just your existence meeting up with other people's existences, and wherever you are is fine. And I really love your talking about roots, because that matters. Everybody doesn't have the same roots, and there's a lot of work in trying to figure out those roots. I feel the same for myself, just trying to figure out what your roots are. Where do they come from, and where do you get your strength from? That's super important. Anyone else have something they want to share?
Well, this term bugs me, and I've really been thinking about it as I'm listening to other people talk. Like it really feels like it deeply annoys me. And it made me wonder, does this term only apply to women? Like we're talking about late bloomers and early bloomers. And I think it's the comparison, right? So you mentioned that, comparing myself to other people. And then this idea that, you mentioned, you hit some of the things, right? This idea that you bloom once, which I think keeps, for example, when somebody mentioned this idea of, they knew from a early age that they wanted to be a doctor. And I think about, I decided early on that I wanted to be an accountant, and then I became an accountant, and then I was done with that. And I think about how this idea of, the blooming, this perspective either keeps people in places they don't want to be because they think that was their one chance, their only chance. There's no more, there's no more blooming to be done.
Right.
But then also how it may prevent people from doing things because they don't want to be considered late. And again, it goes back to this idea around what Ms. Kim just mentioned, time. Like, what is late? Like, like who determines? And why is my time late and yours not? So then again, all these things annoy me. And it just reminds me of, the work I'm doing, right? Like working in mental health with people, and they all, like, a lot of people have this thing, these ideas of things that supposed tos or should haves that aren't really based in anything real. It's annoying. I think that's brings me right back to that's such an annoying term because
I think that's been imposed upon us, especially through the educational system. We've sort of been socialized. When I was teaching, I always told my students, be more than one thing. Don't be just one thing, have your hands in many pots. Because you lose, as you said, you lose interest in things sometimes. And that's why dreams are so important. And no matter how old a person is, they could be 90. I tell them, dust off your dreams. Do something that you've always wanted to do that you never did before, even if it's just going down a certain block a different way, just change, teach yourself change. And that's what I admire about this whole group. Everyone here has learned to embrace change.
We better. Like I think about, like I hear people say about dreams, and I'm like, I've achieved all my dreams, but I keep dreaming. It's like, oh shoot, okay, I didn't did all right, let me find something else to dream about. And I thought that was what I thought that was normal. Like you dream about
it's
something.
It's not at all. It's not for a lot of people.
I'm like, oh,
a lot
you
of
just
people
here without another dream?
People live without dreams.
That's right.
I don't know how they do it.
It's strange to me.
Because I don't know. I can't imagine. You know, sometimes a person will be talking to me, and I'll be like, wait a minute, I just landed. Because I'm somewhere dreaming about a life that I'm creating. You know, like I'm creating lives in my head all the time while I'm working on improving the reality that I'm in. But had I not done that throughout my life, I wouldn't have escaped a lot of the errors that I made along the way, where relationships were concerned or whatever. You know, you have to dream a new life, dream an improved life. How I really started was I made a commitment to myself to get up every day, do something different, and something beautiful had to be involved.
Mm.
And by doing that, I created a beautiful life,
Mhm.
you know,
Mm.
and moved myself away from the toxicity that was slowly choking me from myself and other people. A whole lot from other people, you know.
And this is really why I love social media so much. It's because I get to surround myself with people who are of similar thought.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, I always point to the fact that I lost my mother when she was 49, so I don't really have a close example of positive things that women do when they get older. And
Mm.
so watching other women age and, you know, be active, you know, active travelers and just, you know, just start new careers at 50, 60, 70 years old, like that really just does my heart so good. Because I remember having these conversations with my mom, and you know, from age 39 to 49 was really just to talk about cancer. And you know, and so I don't know anything else with a woman in that age bracket. It was, you know, as it was talking about life ending early, you know, instead of talking about the joys of getting older and becoming more wise and things like that. And so being able to watch older women on Facebook and in other places and meeting people in real life is really therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, you saying that made me just pull up a calculator and see what age I started studying to be a holistic health practitioner. And I thought it was sooner, but I started at 60,
Mhm.
you know, and I mean, I feel as if I don't know, but I just feel like if I had started earlier, maybe I would have been burnt out by now or
Mm.
something or another. Like
Mm.
maybe I would have moved on to something else. But you know, holding up the principles but not really enjoying. I don't know. I can't predict what would have happened if I had started earlier. But I do know that having started when I started has created a utopia for me. The people are wonderful because they are like-minded. All of you are included in that. I don't concern myself with people who don't enjoy things that I enjoy in the sense of pockets of things, you know, because we all enjoy different things. But if they are languishing, I try not to, I'll try to help them if they want help, but I don't engage. I don't connect, you know, myself to their wagon, so to speak,
Mhm.
you know, because now at this point, it's all about piling it on and creating a legacy, you know. what am I going to leave behind? And it has to be pure.
Mm.
I wonder when you say if you had started earlier, if you would have been burned out. I started working doing mental health coaching two years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it shocked me because I felt too young to know the stuff that I knew. And working with such a diverse group of people. I mean, diverse, but then not diverse, right? So they work in school districts and mostly corporate. But having like an life experience to pull out my pocket for every single person was like real weird.
Yes, yes, I know what you mean. And that you articulated what I was trying to say. Had I started this earlier, I wouldn't have had the tools,
That part.
the knowledge, the wisdom, the experience, the scars to show
Mhm.
for, because I had to come out of the darkness first before I could leave.
Right.
See, we can't all be in the dark together feeling around. you know?
Um, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
So the Sunday, I met with a community women's writing group for a book club. It was like a book review and a writer's review. And during the I guess the discussion, I started feeling like I didn't know a lot of things that some of these women were talking about as writers, and started to annoy me, and I didn't know why. And then I got off the out of the meeting, and I called my daughter because I owed her a phone call, and she asked me how I was doing. I said, I don't think I'm doing so well. I hadn't felt this feeling for a while. And she says, well, what does it feel like? I said, it feels like I've been left behind on something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but haven't allowed myself to do it. I've touched around it. I've done a little bit of it, but I haven't really, I haven't fully bloomed. I haven't fully experienced what it is to be a published author that I've always, in creative writing, in literature, not technical writing, not the crap that I've been doing for, over 30 years. And she said, you're just being hard on yourself. I said, well, I don't know if it's me being hard on myself. It is how I feel right now. Like I've been dreaming. I dream a lot, but I haven't quite gotten to this. So when I got your message about the topic today of being a late bloomer, I was like, why, how is this topic coming up? How is Halona knowing that I feel like a late bloomer? And whether I like the term or not, I don't believe I like the term, because evidently it has pushed some buttons. So I realized in the day before this meeting, I actually had a journaling and meditation circle myself, with people about uncertainty and opening up to uncertainty and feeling uncertain about next steps. It doesn't bother me because I'm curious. I'm going to open up to it. but always somehow feeling that I'm on the late end of certain things that I've wanted. And I guess what it comes down to is just that old saying that people in my family who said, just keep on living, and you will see what will happen. Luckily, I I want to keep living. I want to make change, and see where I'll go. I do know people who have no dreams, don't know, aren't interested in things, but that really hit me, and I couldn't figure out why I was feeling like I was behind. I know we all grow at different paces, and space and trajectories. When you're married, you find out that your partner is like way behind you, and you're going somewhere, or you're behind them, and you guys just are not meeting. And I think that is some of the tension that's felt in coupled in coupled, in relationships. Um, so I just wanted to share that. What also struck me, about, the plants, or we're talking about flowers and plants, is I went to a um arboretum garden, last a couple weeks ago, and I'd been wanting to see up close the air plants, that just attach by seeds, to surfaces, usually wood, and just grow out of, you know, I guess they take root, but their roots are just, not even roots, they're more plants. So it's like they're living in air with no soil. And I think a lot of us are like that. And I believe I'm similar to that. I haven't been rooted because I've moved around a lot of places, and I don't mind shifting and changing. And I think that's been a problem in relationships that I have had, where people didn't understand that. They're like, "Oh, let's don't sit down. What's your new address again? Where are you living now?" I've been living in the same place. You just have not been in touch with me. What are you doing now? I do the same thing, but I do a whole bunch of other stuff too. So, yeah, so I just wanted to drop that in. I think some of us are air seeds,
Mhm.
and we associate with other air seeds.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
I think those types of roots, are they called tendrils? Is that what they're called?
What is it?
Tendrils,
Tendrils? I think so.
where they just sort of grow on the outside,
Yes.
like
Yes.
like an orchid, maybe?
Yes. And they just flourish, as
Mhm.
opposed to like the medium of the soil, or even water. That we have the water lilies that just, you know, just suck up everything in the water. But there's soil sometimes in that too. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's correct.
Mhm. Y'all are so poetic. Look at y'all. Go ahead.
I'm just throwing out everything that's in my head.
Uh-huh. Let's keep talking about roots, and we need to be rooted, and we got to grow our own roots. And then Kathy wants to bring in talking about air seeds and all sorts of other things. We are so poetic. I love it. And honestly, I didn't know that it would take the conversation would take this turn, which is why I enjoy this group so much because I can come to the group with my own thought about the thing, and then everyone else will sort of bring in their own thoughts as well. Did anyone have anything else that they wanted to share? If not, I can give you, we can go move into our questions for the day, our journaling questions. So I generally give 3 journaling questions that we can write down. And we have a few moments we can probably get, I'll give you all 3, and then you can just sort of work on the question that seems the most interesting to you. And we probably use the last 5 minutes to be able to discuss the one that you like the best. Oh, no. Number 1, how will you know when you're successful? Or how do you know when you're successful? How do you know when you're successful? Question number 1. Let me put it in chat. Question number 2 is, how is your perception of time helping or blocking your success? How is your perception of time helping or blocking your success? And then number 3 is, are you in a blooming or dormant season of life? How do you know? Are you in a blooming or dormant season of life? How do you know? We'll take like 3 or 4 minutes. Answer whichever question makes the most sense to you right now. Okay. We have about a good 5 minutes left. If anyone wants to share what they've written, or if you just want to share the gist of what you've written, that's cool too.
I can chime in briefly.
Sure, Precious. Thank you.
I did question 1 about how I know when I'm successful.
Mhm.
And I guess success to me is when I have set and reached goals that are free of the influence of others. My origins, my roots, you know, thinking of myself as a flower, I didn't really have strong roots. I wasn't watered or fed properly. So any goals I may have set and reached in that environment didn't feel like success. So now that I'm starting over, once I've reached those new goals, which are actually goals I had as a child, I just wasn't allowed to want them. Once I've done that, whatever that looks like, I feel like I'll be successful.
Mhm. You said once you've done that, what was the last part?
Once I've reached goals without worrying about what others might say about them, just what I know in my heart is for me, then I'll know I found success.
Thank you for sharing it.
Okay, I did question 1 also. I'd already done question 1 because I did this last night. Funny enough, in my journal. And I'd written, your success is defined by you. You are the one who determines what your achievements in life should be and are. There should be no competition to live your life on the world's terms, but your standards and directions are your own. You are the one who should know what is on your heart and in your conscience to be carried out in your life. You have the roadmap that should be followed, goals that you aspire for, and plans that are laid out to be reached. How, when, and what you achieve in your life is by your determination. There could be plans or aspirations you had at one stage of your life that you no longer have, but you have made other achievements. Those are your successes. Allowing others to dictate whether you are successful or not is irrelevant, as what they consider as successful more than likely is not what you would consider. You are already a success at being you. And then I had other people deciding whether you are successful or not is a non-issue, as they do not have access to the blueprint for your life. You are a successful you, as there is not another you. Therefore, you are living your life successfully. And so that's just what I think. I mean, the world's terms of success, everybody considers something having money or being a movie star or an athlete, but you're who you are, and you're living your life to the best of you. May be a successful mother, a successful wife. You're just, even if you're not any, you're successful to you. I'm living my life fully, and I appreciate what it is I am doing. And so I consider myself a success. And that's my input.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think we're very quick to put the label of failure on ourselves. It's easier for us to feel like we're failures rather than successes, or really, there's so many people who would trade spaces with you at any point in your life.
Yes.
And so if we just sort of turn the attitude our attitude around ourselves will be able to move a little bit easier towards the goals that we set for ourselves. I think that would be a nice thing to be able to do. So, any final words, anyone, in our last minute? If not, thank you so much. I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate everyone's input. I hope that this has been supportive for your life journey. It's wonderful to see all these wonderful faces. Some of you are new. Some of you pop in when you can. And I just really appreciate your presence. I really want everybody to know that. So thank you so much. I'm going to put this on the replay on YouTube. I always share the replays on YouTube. And so, yeah, thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next Wednesday. If you want to join the circle, you can click the link in the description to join the email list to get reminders of the topic and the time. We meet on Wednesdays at 8 a.m. Eastern Time in the US. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.